the next question that I think would be interesting is probably if you could tell us about a particular campaign action that you think was successful and what made it successful, right? So it could be something small about like a specific case, it could be something bigger. So just something that for you stood out as significant and why was it effective? What made it effective?
This was a case we had with a member called Mary in the Romford area who was sort of very vulnerable because she was receiving benefits. So a lot of landlords won't accept people on housing benefits. They're reluctant to. They're concerned about the affordability, and often they struggle to find housing. In this case, she found an agency that would accept her, but only if she paid 6 months upfront rent, so an advance rent payment. And so she sort of scrimped and saved, begged and borrowed, got some friends and family to contribute some money so that she could get that 6 months rent payment. And just before she was moving in, when she actually got to see the property and have the contract, there was a stipulation that in 6 months she would have to pay another 6 months in advance. And this wasn't feasible for her, which, I mean, a lot of people struggle, even with good salaries in London, to afford 6 months rent. So you can imagine she was like, oh, I can't commit to this. I don't want to move into the property if I'm going to be signing this. So she never moved into the property. And the landlord was refusing to return the advance rent payment of 6 months. So this was quite some substantial money. And sort of legally, because she'd had this agreement, she put in some arrangement with the estate agent. There was quite limited recourse for what she could do through the existing law on getting that payment back. So we were able to organise collectively to put some pressure on the estate agent to actually return that deposit. It took a few months, but working with her and sort of people in the local facility, we were able to get some publicity about it, go to the estate agent, did a little picket, we did a phone blockade. We got as many of our members as possible to try and phone up the estate agent and sort of say how unfair they thought this was and that we weren't going to go away until we felt that some sort of justice or refund had occurred. And eventually we were able to ensure the return of our members' money, and she was able to use that to find alternative accommodation. So that was a good victory for the London Renters Union. And I think that's a very good example of how where the law isn't on renters' sides, on our side as renters, that if we work collectively, we can put pressure on landlords and organisations to listen up and take action in our interest.
Thanks. Yeah, definitely. That's I think it's to the core of the work you do, and it's been proven to be very effective in many cases, at least. Okay, so the same for, I think, for Saskia. So what's an action that Focus 15 led and that you feel was particularly important or successful?
I think I'm going to use an example of somebody that's now part of the strategy group of our campaign. So someone that is directly involved in the leadership of the campaign, and that's somebody that we met because they lived in Brimstone House accommodation, Focus 15 hostel, as a single young mother. We met her at the street stall, and we worked with her to challenge her unsuitable immediate accommodation, which is this issue of long-term temporary accommodation. That's something we're really grappling with, where people are in temporary accommodation hostel for sometimes 2 years, sometimes more. So that was the initial thing that we were working with this person to challenge. They were coming on the streets every week, every Saturday, to discuss, okay, what's the next step? What are we doing? Blah, blah, blah. They got involved in a legal challenge that we're doing against Newham Council. And so, yeah, they threw themselves into the campaign. They got involved. And from that point, she was offered accommodation. It was outside of London. And so we worked with her to challenge that offer of accommodation, which was slightly tricky because if you don't take that accommodation, then you're made intentionally homeless. And that's the go-to for any council. If you do not accept this accommodation, you're made intentionally homeless. And a lot of the time as well, people are advised to move into the unsuitable accommodation and then challenge it. And what we were doing collectively with this person was saying, nah, we're not even going there. So we worked together to use some aspects of things that we had learned from the law and looking up online and campaigning techniques. And we challenged it. And she wasn't moved out, and she also wasn't made intentionally homeless because the council didn't feel like it could get away with that. And in fact, it ended up that this person was moved onto the carpenter's estate, which is the estate that we're obviously drawing attention to all the time, that there are empty homes on that estate. And this person now has been part of our campaign for close to a year. And so the reason that I'm bringing that up as an example is that is everything that we want are people that we stand alongside to organise with. And then they continue to organise once they have their immediate housing needs met. Yeah, so I think I'll leave it there, but that's a really important situation and case for us that we feel is a success.